All right, so welcome to how to use Click Color Studio. Click Color Studio is a free online visualizer tool by Tri-County Metals where you can actually design or lay out a metal roof for your house using your own house image, or you can choose from the gallery and explore the colors and options as far as panels for your specific project. So just to share with you real quick, here is the homepage for Click Color Studio when you arrive. Of course, you can start with this first one, which is your project gallery. If that's easiest, you can just go on here. The concept is that you would select a house that looks similar to your house. So you don't have to necessarily map out the roof, but we can definitely show you how to do that on this call. But let's say that your house looks like this. You can select that particular unit, and there's some things that we can modify here. For the gallery, we've actually modified the walls, the roof, and the trim, and in this case, garage doors to be able to be changed in color and type. But for at this moment, let's talk about metal roofing. So if we click on the metal roofing tab, then it brings us to different panel types that we can select. So this is where the fun begins. So we can say, hey, I want to try the 1.5-inch TCM lock panel on this roof, and I want to use the Core Defender color series. And for this house, hey, let's go copper. Let's see what that looks like on this particular house. Now, for just a few seconds, we see, lo and behold, there's the design. And if you don't like that particular color, the good news is you can hop right back in, select a different one. And there you go. Now let's say we want to explore a different panel type. We'll just scroll back up and let's say, really, let's just do Ultra Rib, which is sort of our mainstay, most popular panel. And let's do that in a dark green. There you go. So it's just that simple. And of course, from there, you can also do the same thing for the trim, the walls, the garage doors, for any project that's in the gallery. That's this first tab. But really, while we're here, is you want to know how to modify a photo of your house to see what a metal roof looks like for your home. So then you would click on this Design Your Roof tab. Then we would go and open up the folder where you've saved an image from your smartphone for your home. Drop it right there in that window and click Next. Now we have our home in the project window. The first thing we have to do is we have to set up the scale of the project. And you can see from this illustration, they're telling you to draw a line from the top to the bottom of the door, which that normal height is 6 feet 8 inches, so they can get a scale. So as I move my mouse over the garage doors, you can see my X marks in this little bubble window here to the right of Set the Project Scale. You can see it magnifies the view. So here I'm clicking on the top left corner of the door one time, and you see the yellow line. I'm moving the crosshairs to the very bottom edge of the door and click again. And it says, hey, do you need to try again or continue? Well, I'm pretty sure that's 6 feet 8 inches, but we're going to continue. Now it's asking, hey, what do you want to modify? Well, just like in the gallery, we can map out the walls, the trim, and the metal roofing, but for purposes of this, let's just modify the metal roofing. And by the way, why would you want to map out the walls and trim? Well, let's say you want to get a red roof and you've got a pink house. Well, you might decide it's time to paint that house, and your wall and your trim paint colors might be different to match up with the roofing color that you choose. So that's why we have those options available. But let's show you how to map out the roof. So in a similar fashion, we have this crosshair bubble that moved over to the right side of the screen, and we can start the crosshairs right here on this upper left corner of the roof. And before I begin, the way this is lined out, I see the black shingle representation on 3 visible parts of the roof. For each part, we're going to map out the area and the perspective for each area, and that's how we're going to map out this project. So let's get started. So we're going to come down here to the top left corner. It's just a part I'm going to start with. Going to click it one time, and as we pull it up, we see that blue line that indicates our trace. To the next corner, looking at the crosshairs, get it just right. Going to click it again, then move it once again to the start of the third leg. Click it again, and all the way down, I'm going to trace around this gutter, 2 and 3, to get it real precise. And then I'm going to find my starting point. And when you do, it'll go from the icon of the cursor will go from a crosshair to a hand. Then I'm going to click it. And as you may be able to see, it highlighted that section of the roof as a blue. So we're going to go ahead and set the layers perspective. So I'm going to, it has these 4 circle points. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab each of them and line them up with the corners that we just drew, so that when it maps out the roof, it will have a correct perspective of how the panels are represented in the depiction. So here I'm going to just line up each of these to our 4 areas that matches what we just traced out. And here I'm kind of going behind the gutter because that's about how that would work. Should be about there. And then I'm going to click done. Then we're going to start on the next section. Here I'm going to start on the upper left of this section. I'm going to go across to the right edge of the roof of the peak, and then down, touching this gutter, over to where this gable intersects with the roof, up to the ridge of that gable, back down to the second floor roof line, over. And like the other one, we're going to kind of trace out this gutter, try to make it precise, and then up until I turn into a hand. And then we've set that. So then I'm going to set the layer perspective for this. Now, let's see here. Here, it's a little bit trickier, but you use these lines that extend beyond the roof to sort of visualize what you think would make sense looking from the ground. And I think that we need to pull this one over here, and I think about there is going to make more sense. So then I'm going to be done with that. And then I'm going to go back to metal roofing, and I'll map out my last section. Starting just above on the top left of the garage, I'm going to go down to the gutter, over across the top of the garage, kind of tracing out that gutter nice and tight, up to this top right corner, over to the bottom left corner of this gable bump out, up to this wall, and then over till my crosshair becomes a hand again. And the only thing we have left to do is map out the layers perspective. So I'm going to grab that one, then this top left. Then I'm going to grab this one, and then the top right. I think that's probably about right. So now we're done with that. So now we've got 3 layers drawn out. Let's save it. Now, here, what I forgot to do was group them. But we can group all these together so that they all match. Unless you really wanted to have different color um, panel options for different parts of the roof. But let me edit that. Let me go back to metal roofing and just click on group to the right of draw. Click on the group. Now here, I've grouped them together. All I did was click on each layer and I'm going to click group. I'm going to save it. Now we have one instance rather than 3, but if you wanted to have a different color, then you just would not group them together. But so this is kind of where I've started, but let me go back. Of course, when we begin this process, first we can select our panel and then the color. So, a really popular profile for us is the TCM lock profile, the standing seam. So let me do that in our core defender and let's go copper. That looks pretty impressive, and the perspective is fairly accurate. We might have to go back in and adjust this one just a little bit, or maybe redo it. But these two look pretty close. In fact, they all really do. But nonetheless, it gives you a basis that you can go back and you can play with color. That was copper. This is mocha tan, or we can go with polar white to kind of match the house, an off white. But you can kind of see what the little striations and the ribs look like. It's pretty dramatic. And we can come back and we can say, hey, let's do that ultra rib, see how it looks. Let's do the ultra rib in that polar white and see how it looks. Not quite of dramatic of rib height, a little more subtle. Maybe that's your speed, or maybe you want to go big and chunky, like a PBR, which is more of an agricultural type panel, but the PBR panel in polar white, it has a much more pronounced rib. It's more handsome and attractive. It just depends. A lot of times, the larger the project, the higher you want the rib height to be. But that is a quick overview of how to use Click Color Studio. There's Hawaiian blue. I think that's a good combination. But now that you're at this point, you can take a snapshot of the roof. Boom. And then we have that snapshot. We can download it. We can do more than one, and we can compare it, or we can share it. You can share it out on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever. And if you have questions or you want pricing at this point, then the only thing you have to do is click on this have questions or need pricing. And when you do, they'll take you to this page where our very own Jamie Hino will be happy to take your call. Here, you can actually schedule a time to speak with her and get on her calendar. But if you have questions, need pricing, or want to go ahead and place an order if you're a homeowner, feel free to reach out to Jamie and she can take care of you. Well, that's all we have today for Click Color Studio. We appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, this is Scott with Tri-County Metals. We encourage you to make your next roof your last.